Okay, this video is to somebody was asking how I made the buttons on the front of my site, because as you can see they're not standard buttons and they're actually quite wide. So this is a video to show how you do those. What I always suggest doing first is to use a draft page, so it's not a page that's published, and here's one I've already got which I just call B. So I open that page up. Really I just use that page for experimenting and trying different things out that I don't particularly want to have on my main site yet, but just so that you can actually learn how to do some of these things. Right, one thing that I'm going to do with this video, which I don't always recommend, is I'm actually going to work on a visual mode of the Divi builder. Now you don't click either of those two buttons here, return to standard, editor, or build on the front end. I never ever do that. I use these little icons here. What I would say is if you don't have a great internet speed, then always work in the normal way in the back of your site. But right, okay, so I'll go to desk view. This is also a neat trick here. You can, where that plus sign is, you can load from the library. It gives you three options: pre-made layouts, which we don't want; your saved layouts, which we don't want. It's taken a while to load, but I have got hundreds of pages on my site. So I'll go to existing pages and I'm going to load there's a post. I'm going to load my front page. So basically it's going to load a complete copy of my front page. This is handy to use this if you actually want to make a new page and you want it similar to one you've already got. So you can just add the page and take out elements that you don't want in it. Right, and as you can see, instead of working in the back, I'm actually working on what appears to be the front of the site. And everything's exactly the same. You've got the blocks of the sections, which are the blue ones, the green, which is the rows and the columns, and the individual modules. That's a text module. There's button modules that I've already done. So let's say I want to make a new one of those. Right, so I hover on the last one, or the last element that's there, and I press that plus sign. That gives me the modules that I can actually load on. So I'm going to load a button. That's what the button on my particular website looks like before it gets doctored, for want of a better word. So let's say I'm going to call this button, so you open the module up and you'll see the text there. That's the text that goes on the front of that button. So I'm actually going to, I'll just copy sort of what I've already done, which web design package. Here you'll see you've got a link, and that's where you would put the URL of where you want the button to take them. If you want them to open it in the same window, that means the same tab, you keep it as that. If it's an external link to someone else's site or to Facebook, you put it in the new tab. And the reason for that is because you don't want them leaving your site. So most of the time, if it's an internal link, it's in the same window. Okay, let's move that up a bit because that video thing is in the way there. Right, so then you go to design. As you can see, the text on that is way too big. Alignment, so I get that to center align, left, right, center. Text, don't worry about that. The button, what you see here is use custom styles for button. So we go yes. Right, so that text size is 18. You're going to take it down to 16, in fact 17, which matches the other. So you put 17 pixels there. Button text color is white, which is fine. Now the button background. So I'm actually going to choose, I mean you can have a graduated background gradient there, which I think is a bit of an overkill on buttons, to be honest. So do that to undo that. Go to this paint bucket and I'll just put a solid color. For now I'll just use the red. Okay. Now when you want to change it on hover, so that when somebody goes to click it, you want to change it from the red to another color, up here when you hover there you'll see all these little icons, and you want to choose this one here, which looks like a mobile phone, and that gives you the option. Sorry, no you don't. Totally ignore that. Right, start that off again. You need the arrow, and that will give you, that's the button as it is when you first click on it. When you hover over it, at the moment it's still red. I'm going to change that to black. So that's what the hover will cause it to change to. So those are the only two you need to worry about with the button backgrounds there. Button border width hasn't got a border, which is fine. Border radius, right, at the moment it's circular, which I don't want at all. So you type in 0 pixels. If you wanted it circular or curved, you just adjust that until it's how you want it, but I prefer the edges straight on there. Button letter spacing, be a little bit careful, because especially if you've got a lot of words there, because you have to remember that's going to adapt down onto a mobile and things like that. If you start doing too much with button letter spacing and everything, the button will break up. Button font style, always try and keep to the 2 fonts that you should have for your site, which are already in the system. So I wouldn't go changing the fonts for different things, because you're adding to the weight all the time. Show button icon, I prefer them not to have the button icons these days. And then spacing, this is the one that you want. And what you do is you go to the padding left and right. Now what you type in there is not pixels. I do 3EM. Go back, 3EM. It starts trying to guess you and add the pixels, but we don't want that. And I want it to be the same on both sides, so I did that. And I like to put a box shadow underneath the button, so I go for that one. You can actually vary the intensity of that shadow with the shadow color there. I'll just show you just for the sake of it. So that's making it darker. Right, now the other thing that you have to remember is that whatever you've got on that button, it may be too much when it's actually on a mobile phone. So I'm going to just check that. Go back to the button, button text size. In fact, no, let me look at the spacing, because it's probably the spacing that might be a problem. Right, so we've got the left and the right at 3EM. Now you actually click on that mobile sign, and this will show you what it looks like on the desktop, the tablet and the mobile. So we can see on the tablet, you've got to drag and drop this out of the way sometimes. That's fine. On the mobile, you can see there that it starts to go down over 2 lines. If you don't like it like that and it's too much, then change the setting only on the mobile one. Let's try 2EM for both of them, and it fits. So I know now that it's safe on the mobile, the tablet and the desktop. And that's basically it. You can play around with those settings until it looks exactly the way that you want. As always, you always press the white tick on the green, and then this is a draft, so I'd normally press publish, but I'll just do save draft, and that will save that new button that I've made there. Now when you've actually made a button that you like, you can actually save that as a library item, which you can then load onto a different page or whatever, wherever you want to use it. I won't bother to do that one at the moment, but that's basically how you use the button modules.